Welcome to the Death to the Org Chart podcast with Jeffrey DeMure, your guide to entrepreneurial freedom. Today, we will be exploring mind monsters and control. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the conversation.
Hello, friends. Chances are you became an entrepreneur because you like being in charge. Now, notice I didn't say being in control, because control, not only is it an illusion, but it will limit your success. One of the most limiting factors that I've found to success is this sense of control and the things that are behind it. And one of the biggest things behind control are the things that lurk in the back of our head. Those are the mind monsters. These little voices that tell you you're not enough, it can't be enough. The things that will discourage you. When used correctly, they can inspire and motivate you, but I would say a consistent diet of mind monsters is never good for an entrepreneur. What an entrepreneur needs to be more than anything else is to be confident. And to have people around you that help you protect that confidence is one of the most important things that you can do as a successful entrepreneur. To have the right people around you that build your confidence, not blow sunshine in your ear, tell you what you need to know, but they do it in a way that shows that they care about you. They're not being political about it. They're doing it to make you and the organization better from the things that they contribute to you and to the organization. So how do you do that? One of the things that I've learned to do is to meditate daily and to just get quiet every day. It doesn't have to be for a particularly long period of time, but just get alone and get quiet and begin to reflect on the things that really matter in your life. Keith J. Cunningham wrote this great book. It's called The Road Less Stupid. And what it encourages us to do is to get alone with our thoughts, with a pad and maybe one question that we want to ask ourselves that particular day. I am amazed at what comes out, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader. You can't help it. That's why you're in business. That's what will help you stay in business. Being close to those things that represent the quality and the qualities in your DNA and in your organization's DNA, that'll be the building block for your success. So being in a position where you can access that on a regular basis has contributed greatly to my success, and I think it will to you as well. Let me tell you about an early story about mind monsters. When I had my first business, I was out of the College of Architecture. I was a young aspiring architect. I had a partnership with an architect that was older and a little bit more mature than I was. And he was a little bit more disciplined about things. I was young, single, living in Tucson, Arizona, a garden spot of the Southwest, just having a great time. A lot of my college friends were still there. And we started the firm when I was 2 years out of college. I'd had 2 years experience in working in another firm with the gentleman that became my business partner at that time. And we did pretty well. And then the tax law changed and the nature of our business changed dramatically. So my ability to pay taxes on a quarterly basis, it kind of waned, and I wasn't very motivated to do it. It was either groceries or pay taxes, and groceries and entertainment, of course, always seemed to win out. So after 5 years of this pattern, paying some taxes, I needed to go and deal with it directly with the IRS. So my office was in downtown Tucson. The IRS was in downtown Tucson. I can tell you I was terrified. I don't know if you've heard any good stories about dealing with the IRS, but the reason is because there isn't that many. They're not known for being the kinder, gentler organization within the federal government. They're just not. So my experience was I had to muster up my courage to get down there and work out a deal with them. And so I did, and over the course of 2 meetings going down there, and I walked from my office to the IRS office, and I'll tell you, it was the longest 10-minute walk ever. It was like the long green mile. And showing up, I knew what I was capable of doing, and I knew what they probably wanted. And we were able to negotiate something, and over the course of the next 18 months, I was able to meet my obligations. It involved moving to Boston and taking a position as a project architect with a firm in Boston and just cutting back on things. And it made it possible for me to meet that obligation and to get it behind me. I can tell you the hardest part of that whole thing was not the 18 months while I was paying back my back taxes. The hardest part was that those first 2 meetings and going down to the IRS office and actually dealing with it. And there was all kinds of voices in my head that said, they're going to take everything from you, they're going to throw you in jail. And overcoming those things, those irrational fears, what I've learned is that absolutes are never the domain of success. And they're never the domain of truth either. When you hear always, you always, and you never, chances are that is an exaggeration. And when you begin to reflect on those, the mind monsters take control. So my encouragement is learn to take authority over the things that you think about. You know that you're the only thinker of your thoughts. Nobody can make you think the thoughts that you do except for you. So if you've got a bad thought, change the station. Reflect on something, a past success, something that you've overcome in the past, and have quick access to that information so that you can show yourself that you can have a different history than what the mind monsters will tell you your history was. So I can't underscore the significance of enough of taking authority over how you think and what you think about. Because as you think, that's how you'll end up. If you think great thoughts about yourself and your organization, and I'm not talking about, again, blowing sunshine in your ear or that of the organization, because we all know those people. They're called Pollyannas, and they tend to be positive to the point of being obnoxious. It kind of reminds me of the old story about the rabbit. The rabbit is out in the forest, and the rabbit is kind of hyper and running all around. The rabbit runs up to the bear and goes, hey, Mr. Bear, Mr. Bear. Hey, so when you poop, Mr. Bear, does it get all over your fur? Mr. Bear standing there goes, it's a mess. And so the rabbit says, I never have that problem. My fur is impervious to poop. It just rolls right off. It's amazing. I can't believe it. I'm such a lucky animal. I'm such a lucky creature. The bear says, okay. And he picks up the rabbit and wipes his butt. What's my story? My story's moral is that nobody likes somebody that is positive to the point of being obnoxious. And we know enough people out there. So let's not be Pollyannas. Let's not be the rabbit in the woods that goes up to the bear and then ends up in a really, really bad situation, right? So a sense of humility is important, self-awareness, and also knowing where you are. I was about 10 years into my business, and I recognized that I wasn't very happy. And I recognized that I wasn't very happy when I reflected on it and did the things that I talked to you about previously. And I recognized that if I wasn't happy as an entrepreneur leading an organization, you're the only one that's responsible for your happiness. It's pretty much a model for life as well, but particularly so with a leader in an organization. If things aren't going the way that you would like them to go in your organization, you have permission, you have the authority, you have the responsibility to make a change. And so there was someone that was working in a senior role in my organization that had responsibility for the backstage. And if you remember, backstage is operations and production. And it's so important that that's running well because that provides the confidence for the front stage, right? When you're out there meeting with the public and you're interfacing with clients, you've got to be confident. And you get that confidence from the backstage. The front stage is where value is created. And you can't create value. You can't do the kinds of things that you need to do as an organization and a leader on the front stage if you're not confident in the backstage. And it had gotten to the point where it was getting very, very difficult to deal with. And when I deal with people in a leadership role in my organization or other organizations that are really, they're okay with where they are. It's like, I'm good. I don't need to learn anything else. I've learned enough. I think that lack of commitment to lifelong learning and growth is something that for people close to me is something that is very, very untenable. It's a difficult thing for me to be around. I want people to be excited about their future. I want them to be looking for new opportunities, and it starts within. New opportunities for them, education, new skills, new capabilities. And then when they're more lit up about those kinds of things, then it infuses the organization with a certain energy that just takes on a whole new dimension. That's why it's so important. And that's why it was so difficult to deal with someone that didn't have those qualities. So this person took care of all the operations, and that means accounts payable, accounts receivable, insurance, taxes, all the things that a lot of entrepreneurs don't really like to do. They just want it done, and it's like, yeah, just take care of that and, keep it in a black box. I don't need to know how it's done. I just want to know that it's done and done well. Well, it wasn't being done well. And when I recognized that, I needed to make a change, and it was scary. All of the bank accounts were all in that person's name, and the loans were we both had personal commitments for the business loans. All the documentation for the architectural firm were all in my name, and that's kind of how we divided up the responsibilities. So it would have involved unraveling a whole lot of things. I finally made the decision over the course of 3 months. I worked 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. My wife, who's also an entrepreneur, she's like, you do what you need to do. We have 4 kids. She said, I'll take care of the kids and my business and do the things I need to do so that you can focus on what you need to do. And I spent those 3 months going through the articles of incorporation for the organization and changing the composition of the board of directors. It was tough stuff and several really difficult conversations to have with a person that was very close to me for a number of years. But clearly, you get to the point where you have got to make a decision or things are going to begin to deteriorate. And they had gotten to that point within the responsibilities in the organization. So over the course of those 3 months, I did what I needed to do. Can I tell you, it was probably one of the most exciting, invigorating times of my professional career. I mean, I researched and I love to learn. As Winston Churchill said, I love to learn, but I hate to be taught. Yeah, that's me, and I think that's probably a lot of entrepreneurs out there as well. I love to learn, I hate to be taught. It was very much on my terms. It was very much it needed to be done or else. So over the course of these 3 months, I had tough conversations. I did the things that I'm not particularly great at doing, and I went through the documents. My accountant and attorney, we were talking sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning and communicating regularly 5 days a week. And through that time, I got to the place where I had a better understanding of my organization, what needed to be done, and we were able to work out an agreement with this person and created a better life for them somewhere else. And so our organization, after we did that, can I tell you that it just absolutely exploded? People came into our office afterwards and they said, there's something different about this place. Did you paint? Did you change the lighting? No, we didn't. People bring with them an essence, an aura, a spirit, and these spirits have implications in your organization. And when they're not aligned with what you're doing and how you want to get there, then it makes it difficult to be successful. It's not impossible, but your energy is better spent doing other things than dealing with the kind of stuff that makes it difficult in that environment. It was very, very tough to overcome the mind monsters that I was having going off in my mind relative to making this transition. But once I did, the success was tremendous. One of the things that I've learned to do throughout the years is to think about how you're going to feel after you make a tough decision. You set out the goal, you do the pragmatic, objective things that you need to do, and then you apply a feeling to it. You apply, how is this going to make me feel at the end? If I make this decision, how am I going to feel? Is it going to get me closer to my goals, or is it going to get me further away from my goals? The choices that we make, that's what they do. Our choices take us closer to our goals or further away from our goals. And as Socrates said, a life unexamined isn't worth living. That's why it's so important to reflect on where you're doing, how you're doing, where you're doing it, how you're doing it. First of all, for yourself, and then for the other people in your life that really make a big difference. I talked a moment ago about control, and there's control. And control is a very, very difficult thing to make work in an organization. But being in charge, that has very different implications. Being in charge means that you don't micromanage people, that you have good processes, procedures, and systems so that people know how to work, and then you can better manage those systems as opposed to those people. We never take the human element out of it, but when there are those systems, processes, and procedures in place, everybody knows what the expectations are, and when they're met, great, you'll do better. When they're not met, there's consequences, and it's an easier conversation to have. That's the value of being in charge and having systems that support that. Let me tell you a story about businesses that I've seen, friends that I've seen that have built great businesses. They've had some amazing talent as part of their organization, but because of either ego, it's a real thing in business as entrepreneurs, either ego or self-esteem issues or a willingness to always get credit for what happens in the organization. When those things are part of what you need to do, it's extremely difficult to overcome the control that needs to be there for what you need to do. So being in charge allows you to have people that are high quality people that have the same values, that have the same alignment, that have the same goals for building a legacy organization and empowering them to do what they do best. Sometimes it may involve giving some ownership to those people in order to keep them as part of your organization. I have seen so many organizations that have had the great people that I just talked about as part of their organization, and they ended up going somewhere else. And that organization did not do as well. It got to a certain level of success, and it built and tried to unify itself. But because of these reasons that I mentioned before, control, ego, self-esteem, needing to take the credit as a leader, an entrepreneur, and a founder, that because of those reasons, it just was detrimental to the success of the organization. So having that sense of awareness about, am I being in charge or am I being in control, has a lot to do with the success of a great organization. So can I give you a couple of examples of the relationship with my business partner? He wasn't just a business partner, but he was a friend as well. And the things that he was responsible for are the things that I did not like to do. I never did them very well, and that's why you have partners. Partners in an organization or leaders in an organization, they do the kinds of things that you don't like to do. And he did several of them. I didn't understand them. I didn't know about the relationships that had to do with professional liability insurance, with our financial institutions that we dealt with, even a lot of our clients and how we got paid. And so the mind monsters worked overtime with me saying that you'll never be able to figure this out. This is too difficult to overcome. You're just going to have to put up with this. Too bad. This is your destiny. This is your life. And things have to get so uncomfortable sometimes in order to make a decision. What I've learned from this is that they don't need to become that terrible before you make a decision. Chances are you know what needs to be done. And the big take home for me from this relationship that I had with my business partner was that there's other great people out there that are more than willing to step in. And when I began to resource within my organization the young leaders that are close to me and find them stepping up in such a huge, courageous way, because I think that's a huge part of leadership is courage. And the courage that was represented by these young leaders in my organization, and even some of the more mature leaders within my organization, it was phenomenal. And I think the reason why is because there's this sense that when there's a vision, when you have an idea about how to make things better and you really believe it, right? You believe it in your heart, other people will see that. They'll see that sincerity. They'll see that authenticity. You don't want to be crying in your coffee about how bad things are. There's a time for that. But what you need to do is to get beyond the therapy and get on to making the decision and moving on. It's scary to do, but the liberation that it provides as a result is amazing. So we've talked a little bit about mind monsters. I've given you a couple of examples and a couple of tools. Let me give you the last tool. A lot of us entrepreneurs are, like me, verbal processors. This is how I deal with the mind monsters. What lives in the dark dies in the light. So when you have things that are kind of hidden away, fears, apprehensions, stuff that the mind monsters are working overtime saying, this is too stupid to share with somebody, people are going to think you're a moron. That's what the mind monsters would tell us. What I've learned is that when I'm with the right people, and the right people are people that are for me, they're for my family, they're for my business, they believe in me, they believe in the things that I do and how I do them, and the quality with which I try to bring what I do to life. When I'm around those people, it's comfortable for me to verbally process. I think it's probably why, bartenders are seen as the great therapists of society, and baristas, not so much. They can't even get your name right. At least the bartender gets your name right. Baristas, it's like a joke. Really? I have to ask them sometimes, you still work for tips, right? Because, this is not helping your cause. So what I found is that when I'm around the right people and they let me be me and they let me talk about the things that I need to talk about, not interrupting, but guiding the conversation, that for me is tremendously valuable. All a psychologist is a really well-paid friend. Because if you think about it, you have a friend that cares about you. The psychologist, they have to care about you because that's what they're licensed to do, I suppose, right? But they're really just a well-paid friend. A really good friend will be, they'll listen, they'll respect what you have to say, they won't criticize what you have to say, they'll give you credit for your feelings, and then they'll help you understand what those are. Probably better than a psychologist sometimes, because it's like, oh, the hour's up. Oh, 50 minutes is an hour now? What is this, the new math? So the hour is up. A friend will rarely do that to you. And a friend will allow you to have an organic conversation about the things that matter. And that's why it's so important to be around the right people, to get in the light about the things that are bothering you, and to close the door on those wicked mind monsters, because they're not helping you.
Thank you for joining us for the Death to the Org Chart podcast with Jeffrey DeMure. Be sure to subscribe on Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. To get more information about Jeff, or to order your copy of the book, Death to the Org Chart, go to dttoc.com. Go create the freedom you were meant for.